we finally got a date, official gameplay, and even PC confirmation for Help Wanted 2, and I am beyond excited about it. So I'm going to be breaking down the press release and gameplay trailer that released this week to try to give you all the information there is, as well as my early thoughts and a prediction into the plot of the game. So slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. First, let's gather our ingredients and go over everything we got. First and most obvious is the trailer itself, but I think going over the blog post first will be more beneficial, mainly because it'll give us context so we know what we're actually looking at when watching the gameplay trailer. On blog.playstation.com, executive producer at Steelwool Ray McCaffrey posted an entire press release sharing honestly a lot of information about the game. Right away, we get the 6 categories that the games are going to be in. If you're confused as to what that means, if you remember Help Wanted 1, there were several categories depicting the different games within. There was FNAF 1, 2, and 3, as well as dark rooms, vent repairs, parts and service, and night terrors. I assume by categories, they're referring to those. He wrote, quote, backstage, Fazcade, staff only, food prep, ticket booth, and a special category containing new VR versions of Five Nights at Freddy's sister location gameplay. Now, what I think might be meaningful, and we'll get into it later, we actually don't get a name for the category that would contain those sister location games. It just says a category for the sister location game. So there could be potential spoilers linked to whatever name the category has, or also totally possible, it's just called Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, like in Help Wanted 1 when we have Five Nights at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3. He let us know that a big focus on the game was going to be mini-games with randomizable objectives in order to increase replayability, because a lot of people complained that Help Wanted 1 isn't super replayable because a lot of the mini-games are the exact same every time. So it was stressed that this will have a lot more random elements to it, like ingredients or orders or things like that. But they still do have some more curated experiences. And lastly, we get an explanation of each category, which is kind of huge. Backstage sees us as VIPs getting up close and personal with the animatronics. The example given is a minigame where we give Roxy a makeover. Fazcade will be more traditional minigames with things like Fazzer Blast or Bonkabon. Staff only will be more hands-on types of jobs, and he mentions performing first aid. Food prep is, as it sounds, you're prepping food, but he gives something away that's very, very important at the end of that paragraph. Remember, the staff bot's serving orders do not need to sleep, eat, or stop ever, so don't get distracted wondering why you're the only human employee left. We will talk about that later. In Ticket Booth, we'll do more attraction-based games, like Captain Foxy's Cowboy Adventure, which we see in the trailer is pretty much what we thought the Foxy Log Flume was supposed to be. And finally, Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, where they seem to have reimagined a lot of the gameplay from Sister Location to make it more compatible for VR, as well as adding Custom Night. It's also mentioned that a PS5 exclusive minigame will be Mystic Hippo, in which she can read our fortune and she'll be the one leading us through the majority of the game. So, I mean, that's kind of hype. I won't experience the minigame because I'll be playing it on PC. I don't have a PS5 or a PSVR 2, and that's like $500 each. Look, the channel's doing really well, and I'm blessed with it. Not doing well enough that I could drop $1,000 to play a game that I already have a headset for on PC, so I just won't play that minigame. It's fine. But speaking of PS5 versus PC, the blog post ends out saying that the game will come out December 14th. And Steelwool later confirmed on Twitter that it will be releasing same day for PC. So huge win. One of my biggest fears going into this was that every single trailer kept saying PSVR 2 gameplay only. So I was like, am I gonna get to play it? Yeah, like I said, I'm being super real. If it didn't come out on PC, I just wasn't gonna play it. Also, super insane, this game comes out in like 3 weeks, so get ready. I will be live playing it day one on this channel, I guarantee you, so keep an eye out for that. Alright, now that we have context, let's rip as much information out of this trailer as we can. Right away, we get a FNAF 6 Help Wanted style pep talk about working for Fazbear, but it actually uses these stills from FNAF 6 directly, like they're the same images. But that's not all. If you notice the slight vignette around the screen and the sound of the projector,
clock in. The first day at a new job can be daunting, anxiety-inducing.
This seems a lot more real than anything we saw in Help Wanted. This could imply that this is actually really taking place and not another in-universe VR game, but we'll get into that later. Also worth mentioning is that Hand Unit mentions it's our first day, which could help us place it on the timeline somewhere. The first minigame that's actually shown is Fazzer Blast, but it looks a lot different than what we see in Security Breach. This time, the sign for it is Western themed and the inside is the office for FNAF 1 for some reason. It's not at all laser tag. We then get the lobby of what I think we can safely assume to be Captain Foxy's cowboy adventure. After all, we know it exists from the blog post, that's Captain Foxy, and this lobby looks a lot like one of those old Western sheriffy kind of offices. The next shot is one of the food prep minigames, I assume, seeing as we're prepping food. And also worth noting is this kitchen timer on the desk. Now, yeah, sure, it's a kitchen timer, we're in a kitchen, it's probably just the timer for the minigame, but it is worth pointing out that kitchen timers like this appear in a lot of the minigames, so this seems to be a recurring theme. Whether that's important, who's to say? We then get a shot of the carousel minigame that was shown off at PAX, but specifically the circuitry of it. If I had to guess, this is probably a staff-only minigame, but I could see it being the ticket booth as well, since it is a large attraction which would fit with what we know about ticket booth, but because it's more hands-on and we're not actually riding it, I think it is also possible that it's staff only. It's really up in the air. Then we are doing the staff only thing that was previously mentioned, medical support, where specifically we're helping Helpy feel better. I think. We are kind of just put a gas mask on him, but it's probably helping him. The thing to note here though is that it's a gas mask, which traditionally in medicine is a sedative. It's something that kind of dulls the pain. But the blog post specifically says, quote, Fazbear Entertainment doesn't have the necessary license to stock any sedatives, which does raise the possibility that this gas mask is nightmare gas. What is nightmare gas? I don't blame you for not knowing. In case you missed it, the last Tales from the Pizzaplex book had a story about a boy named Rory going through a never-ending, fully automated FNAF 4 nightmare experiment. He was trapped in chambers attached to the sister location bunker that would run mannequins and pretty much exactly recreate the FNAF 4 gameplay. But it was pumped full of hallucinogenic gas to induce nightmares and make everything seem very much more real and vivid than it was. This gas seems to sort of work like illusion discs, where it doesn't just create things, but it makes you see things way more realistic than they actually are, except that presumably gas would only work on a human, whereas illusion discs can be turned into something that can affect robots. It's a little confusing. We don't have that much details on it. For one, technically it wouldn't make sense for us to be using that gas on Helpy because Helpy's a robot, but then again, it's FNAF, so who knows? Anyway, next we see one of the most interesting parts of the entire trailer. We're playing a matching card game with a Glamrock endoskeleton hooked up to a VR headset. The Glamrock endos are already suspected to be related to the Mimic, that endoskeleton antagonist from the End of Ruin that's able to copy and mimic things that it learns and sees and hears. But this whole setup, especially considering that Glitchtrap is primarily within a VR space the last time we visually see him, is very suspect, especially if you consider the fact that Glitchtrap could be interpreted as an extension of the Mimic's programming. So this is very Mimic coded. I wouldn't doubt if we get a lot more of Mimic's stuff in this game. We then get a scene from deeper in Captain Foxy's cowboy adventure, notably featuring the cardboard cutouts we see at the end of the Foxy log flume area from Ruin. And I should mention a couple things. One, this does kind of disprove my theory that these cardboard cutouts were used at a eatery, the Foxy Saloon, seeing as we're seeing them being used in this minigame. Two, very technically, I wasn't wrong. It is still a saloon, kind of, just not the one we were imagining. Yeah, that's not what I was imagining at all, so I was wrong. We then see this minigame mentioned in the VIP section of the blog post, aka giving Roxy a makeover. After that, what I imagine to be another minigame from the VIP section, making paper plate pals with Sun, which seems really cute. After that, we get the minigame I'm most excited to play, Bonkabon. We know a little bit about it thanks to the FNAF doco and other videos that were released by it, and we have confirmation that it's in the Fazcade section of the game. Yeah, this looks so goddamn fun, I really want to play it. After that, we see Blast again, but this time there are balloons being shot, so that's probably how the game functions. Again, it is super notable that although this makes sense to be something called Blast, this is 100% different from the Blast we see in Security Breach. Also, in the very beginning of this shot, you can see a wheel with FNAF 1 Freddy lit up. Underneath it is what looks like Toy Freddy, something we can't quite see, and then what looks like Nightmare Freddy. So I'm starting to think that the way this minigame will work is that we're shooting these balloons in FNAF-themed offices, and that wheel can randomly spin to give us a different office from a different game. game. After that, we're back to Helpy in the medical bay, but this time we're holding a bone saw. And the TV is telling us to cut something. Also, Helpy has rabies now and is missing a foot. Now, I know that some people said that this is probably popcorn because the advert on the TV mentions popcorn. To be fair, the blog post does say, and I quote, "or curing rabies." So I think rabies is super possible here. We get another shot of the carousel game, this time showing off Moon's presence in it. After this, we get one of many looks of a minigame where it seems like we're doing some sort of music or memory or Simon Says-esque game looking at the pads underneath that will have DJ Music Man slowly coming towards us as the threat. That seems super exciting. I can't wait to see how big DJ Music Man feels in VR. Then we have the redesigned version of probably one of the most hyped things in this game, the Sister Location Custom Night. And while the area is different, this definitely feels very similar and faithful to Custom Night. I mean, the map is the exact same. They probably just squeezed it so it's better in VR. After that, we get some context for that earlier endoskeleton game when we're doing the memory card thing. If you notice, on the left side, that's what that is, but now we're picking up a fast cam and flashing. Because of this, we know that we're in the endo daycare and that there's roaming aggressive endoskeletons in the background. All this combined, I think I'm pretty certain what this minigame all in is going to do. Essentially, we'll be trying to win a matching card game against an endoskeleton. But in the meanwhile, we'll have to protect ourselves from the endoskeletons in the background. And essentially, that will be the risk versus reward, right? Like, you can focus on protecting yourself, but the more you focus, the less you're looking at the cards and memorizing those. We then get a shot of Ballora in that Sister Location Custom Night, and we get another Sister Location minigame. This time, a reimagining of the Freddy, fuse section from Night 2. Now, we're looking for Funtime Freddy in that flashing room, but we have a megaphone that can directionally calm down Freddy if we see him. So we'll have to be doing the fuses and keeping an eye for where Freddy currently is. Almost forgot to mention that was the third and final minigame that was shown off at PAX, so important to mention there. As terrifying as that is, this does introduce the possibility of them bringing back Night 4, the dreaded minigame where you are trying to defend yourself from mini arenas and a spring lock suit. The thing that, I can beat all of Sister Location pretty much deathless at this point, but Night 4 takes me 2 hours because it sucks. We then get a few shots of games we've seen and then one more shot of Phaser Blast from a different angle. An angle that disproves what I said 5 minutes ago, not even. Looking at this left side, there's a bunch of stuff. First off, number 1 crate's back, love that guy. There seems to be balls that we can throw. I don't know if that's set dressing or a mechanic, it's hard to tell. There's also a plush baby that needs to be shot, so thank God we finally can. But notably, the wheel that I mentioned earlier looks like it's just a dial of 4 things, those 4 things. And now that it's on Toy Freddy, we're still at FNAF 1, so part of me thinks that this might just be a difficulty, visual slider. And one more thing to note is that when he looks back, it's very brief. When he looks back at the FNAF 1 office, Bonnie and Chica are in the window and door, and there's now targets to presumably shut those doors. So for this minigame, it seems like we'll be shooting targets, trying to make sure the doors are shut, as well as defending ourselves from Plush Baby and who knows what else, which seems great. We then get a kind of shout out to those parts and service games from Help Wanted 1, but now with Glamrock Freddy and possibly the most scared game tester I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, I love that. I think that's kind of funny, but if game tester, if you're watching this, I get it. You'd probably hammed it up for the trailer, but it was funny. After that, though, we do get something really strange, and I have no notes on this. It's just something I think is worth pointing out. We get this weird shot of just a sun from the daycare, and that's it. It's in total darkness. Not only that, but going to and from this is the only glitchy transition in the entire trailer. I said I have no notes on that, and I have nothing written down, but now that I'm thinking about it as I'm recording, I'll get into this later, but I scripted it later. We'll get there when we get there, but I'm pretty sure we're playing as Vanessa before Security Breach in this game. And if that's true, and if the books and GGY are accurate to the games, then we know at some point Gregory also becomes a part of it and is working with Vanny and Glitchtrap. And if that's true, it's been speculated that the Balloon World arcade machine in the daycare is what's keeping his mind locked, like how Princess Quest is keeping Vanessa's. And if that's true, this strange, dark, daycare adjacent moment could be a look into some of the darker aspects of Help Wanted 2, where we as Vanny turning Gregory towards our side. Total shot in the dark. But if I'm right, I'm gonna brag about it. After that, we get more of the DJ Music Man game, and then another angle of the Helpy Medical Bay section. This time, we're grabbing a remote to turn off that advert, but on the right side, Scrapbaby is there suddenly. Now I'm pretty sure I also get this game. Essentially, we'll be trying to repair Helpy and fix him while keeping the noise down as to not alert Scrapbaby. After all, in the blog post, McCaffrey mentions that, quote, "Be as delicate as possible when sawing off limbs, because a patient's screams will draw unwanted attention." I think that tracks, but then I have to wonder, why the hell are we in the FNAF 6 location? Or, well, obviously, like, the FNAF 6 location is under the Pizzaplex, but, like, why are the FNAF 6 animatronics here? Like, how is Scrapbaby still around? Regardless, after that, it's more of what we've seen, the Scrapbaby jump scare, and then the trailer ends. So that's everything we got on the game this week, and honestly, it's a lot. And now that we're all caught up to speed, I think I have a pretty solid idea on exactly what's going to be happening in Help Wanted 2. But there is something that's having me hesitate, so bake with me for a second. One of, if not the most important thing we got out of all of this for predicting what's going to happen in the game is this one throwaway line in the blog post. Quote, "Don't get distracted wondering why you're the only human employee left." But we do see that there are staff bots. Now, in the lore of Security Breach, we learned that Glitchtrap is able to get Vanessa the job as the head security guard after the Pizzaplex is built. It's technically not confirmed that this is how it worked, but essentially, Vanessa was pushed through to this position even though she has no prior qualifications, and her interviewer was like, "She seems nice, but I don't know why she got offered the job." But once she's in there, Glitchtrap and Vanny start firing people off of the job as much as they can, even for minor infractions. Now, again, not directly through email or digital means, so it's implied that Glitchtrap is the one doing this. Eventually, the Pizzaplex holds an all-staff meeting where they gather up all of the remaining human employees and fire them all at once. It's implied that they actually kill them. It's not confirmed, but it's implied, fully replacing every other employee with a staff bot except for Vanessa. That way, no humans can get in the way with what Vanny and Glitchtrap are trying to do. This all happens before Security Breach. So with this in mind, there's a time in the timeline for some stretch of time that we don't know, where it's just Vanessa and staff bots at the Pizzaplex. So if in Help Wanted 2, we're the only human employee left at the Pizzaplex with staff bots, we're Vanessa. Again, because in Help Wanted, we're also probably Vanessa. This whole game, unlike the first game, might be the real world, not an in-universe VR game. It might be what Vanessa was doing before Security Breach to make it easier for Glitchtrap and Vanny to do what they need to do. It could be we're playing as Vanny, helping to rebuild Burntrap. Realistically, if we're playing as Vanessa, we're playing as Vanny too, because at least I'm fairly certain they're the same person sharing a mind. In fact, this theory also tracks mechanically with Help Wanted 1. In that game, there were the normal minigames, but if you pulled a lever, you could switch to the black light hard mode version of the games and play harder, slightly changed versions of everything. If they want to keep that mechanic for Help Wanted 2, I could totally see it that we play through the games normally as Vanessa, but then the hard mode versions are Vanny doing shenanigans to spread Glitchtrap throughout the entire Pizzaplex. This is all really good stuff, and it could tell us so much about the gap in the timeline from Help Wanted to Security Breach. And it could answer so many questions from Security Breach and the current state of the lore in general. But I have one snag. Sister Location and Scrapbaby. That's 2 snags. If this is actually happening and not a VR recreation, how in the world are we going to get to Sister Location? Let alone the animatronics still being at Sister Location. After all, at the end of that game, all the endoskeletons escape as entered within Michael Afton. So there should be nothing but empty animatronic shells if we were to go there at this point in the timeline. Let alone that Scrapbaby is one half of what eventually becomes of Ennard. So Scrapbaby doesn't exist if the fun times are still intact. This is something we might just have to wait and see for, but I thought I'd throw out a couple ideas in case one of them's right. Possibility number 1, before I get too deep in the possibilities, it's totally possible this whole game is another VR recreation. So just get that out of the way right now. Number 2, there is a possibility that since the shells of the Funtimes were left behind, whatever is powering them right now isn't the Funtime endoskeleton. After all, if the Glamrock endoskeletons are like the Mimic, one of the main abilities of the Mimic is that it can reshape its endoskeleton to fit into any animatronic costume. So there's a chance that in this part of the timeline, if we're going back to Sister Location, some Mimic endoskeletons get in those exoskeletons and the Funtimes are back again. This technically could even explain Scrapbaby if her shell is still in the FNAF 6 pizzeria. For number 3, there's one more theory I had that I have a feeling is going to be a bit controversial. Help Wanted established that the FNAF games we've played in this franchise are actual in-universe indie games that were made to cover up what actually happened. Now, they are true to what actually happened. It's stated that they are factual in a sense to cover up and make like it seem fantastical and impossible when it really did just happen. But keep in mind, these games were still made by one indie dev who didn't have access to everything that actually happened and probably just heard things down the grapevine like everybody else did. What I'm trying to get at is that the events that happened in those FNAF games probably still happened, but the way they happened and how it looked could have been different if the indie dev couldn't have been there. And sure, FNAF 1, 2, and 3, those were real locations that were open to the public, but like Sister Location was not open to the public, the bunker anyway, or the FNAF 6 location was not open to the public, so whatever was in there, presumably, the indie dev wouldn't have seen with his own eyes. What I'm getting at here is it is technically possible that whatever the recreations of Sister Location we see in Help Wanted 2 are, that could be what the Sister Location bunker actually looks like in the FNAF timeline, and whatever we saw in the games is what the indie dev thought it looked like. Not only that, but the Funtimes still being in there could suggest that the Sister Location we know didn't happen at all. To be fair, if that's true, then Scrapbaby wouldn't exist and she's here. I don't know, but I think it's worth stating that to at least start the brainstorm. That's probably not likely or possible, but it might be on the right track. And that's all I have for the trailer. Again, this game looks so incredibly fun, and we will be playing through as much of it as I can day one live on the channel. So I hope to see you there. In the meantime, if you want to know more about the game that Scrapbaby came from, you can check it out right here. A huge shout out to the best channel members around, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.